Andy, it's always nice to look back, especially when you've had a 12-0 victory, as you do reflect on the win against Airbus UK Broughton here at Park Hall. What are your thoughts overall a few days later?
It's always, I guess, I'm struggling to find the right word, difficult when you are on the right end of a heavy scoreline like that, because you feel compassion and sorrow for the opposing coaching staff, because it's horrible when you're in that position. I guess that as a group, as a team, we know how they felt. We've been there already. So there is that immediate connection of empathy between the two coaching staffs. But looking at us, looking at our performance, we never really focus on the score. The win obviously is nice, the win is important, we crave the win, everybody craves the win, but we always analyse the performance. On the day we felt as though we played really, really well. You don't score 12 goals if you're not playing really well. Doesn't matter who you're playing against. But looking back now, a couple of days later, having watched the game back a couple of times, what you find is a really, really mature performance from a group of players. So that's the most satisfying thing from me, is that just in that one performance alone, I can see a lot of the work that we've been, really imparting, not just over the last sort of pre-season period in phase one into this season, but going back well into the depths of last winter. So from turning the corner Christmas time last year and going through the winter, we always were upbeat about where we were going, and we could sense that things were starting to click. And I think the performance on Sunday, arguably in the short time that I've been here on the second round now, was ultimately our best performance. That's why we got the goals. But it was the shapes, it was the patterns, it was the confidence, it was the swagger with which the players played. It was as if everything came to the table all at the right time. So thoroughly delighted with everything that we saw on Sunday.
And as the manager, Andy, how do you look at an excellent performance, 12 goals, a clean sheet, but still at the same time look for those things that you can improve on?
Yeah, I think that just comes with time, with experience. You know what you've been working on and what you may have expected from that game, and was it there? There were certainly things that we can work on. I'm not going to say publicly what they are, of course, but we've identified 3 or 4 things that we really, really need to tidy up on and work on to improve our level. Because with all due respect to Airbus, and by the way, Airbus were really competitive, showed a good spirit about themselves. A lot of teams would have just rolled over. That would have been an astronomical score, but fair play to them. They made life really, really difficult for us on the day. So we know exactly what we've got to do moving forward when we're playing Tier 1 teams. For example, when we get back into the Ajam Premier League this weekend.
Well, the draw has been made for the next round of the Cup, and it's Wrexham here at Park Hall. Always paying full respect to the opponents, of course, but that is a winnable game.
Well, we would hope so. We played them last year in the FA Cup first round last year, not the second round. And that was my first victory and this group's first victory. So that obviously evokes good memories for us straight away, and we'll be using that as fuel when we do get to the next tie. As you said, it's a Tier 1 versus Tier 2. We've got the home draw, so everything stacks up in our favour. But as we said with Airbus, we'll not be complacent. We'll never do that, because ultimately it's 2 teams and anybody can win that game. So if you're not focused, as we've seen many, many times, you can lose a game really easily. So we'll not be taking our eye off the ball. We'll not be complacent in any way, shape or form. We'll prepare properly for that game. And as you say, if it's winnable and we do win, we get through and we're into the last 8. And the draw's in your hands. Anything can happen. We've seen that. Obviously, Swansea and Cardiff Met have drawn each other in the next round. So one of those 2 has gone straight away. So if you get a favourable draw, you could be all the way to the semi-finals. So that will be something that we'll be looking closely at. How do we manage that? But as you say, we've got to look at the first game. We've got to get over Wrexham first.
And it's back to Gennaro Adrian Premier action this coming Sunday. It's a tough one, Swansea City.
Well, they don't get much tougher than this, do they? They're an unbelievable side. They've only lost a very small handful of games in 4 years. They're 3 times back-to-back champions. They play in the Champions League. Everybody knows virtually every player in their league. They win virtually every week. As we've just said in the previous sort of question, every game is winnable on its merit. So I guess we've got to hope that they play a little bit down and that luck goes in our favour, but more than anything we've got to play up. We've got to be at our absolute best this weekend. Confidence is high in the group. We've won 3 games back to back. We've scored 19 goals I think it is, and 2 clean sheets in those 3 games. There's a great good feel good factor about the place. We'll be looking to sort of accentuate that this weekend and see if we can continue to get the best out of our players in a relaxed but positive, aggressive, assertive manner to go and play our game and assert ourselves over the opposition.
The statistics that you just mentioned there, Andy, 3 games on the bounce that the side has won, the goals for, the goals against. Will you be using those in particular to say to the girls, look, we can do it this weekend based on what you've seen over the last 3 fixtures?
No, I don't think I need to do that. I think it's an intrinsic motivation and an intrinsic confidence that just continues to build. You get a sense when you're working with the group how we're operating. Are they sort of at one with the game? And at the moment we're in a really good moment. Our players appear to be in flow, so to speak, with the game. So we'll just be very relaxed in our manner. We don't think that we need to start to highlight this, that and the other. We'll just concentrate on our game in the way that, in the style and the fit that we have. And as I say, if we're anywhere near our best, it'll be a really, really good game for people that want to come and watch it to observe. So we're really excited by the prospect of facing Swansea this weekend.
And as we do the press conference right now, this is ahead of another training session, but preparations, of course, not only on the pitch but off it as well. How's it going overall?
Yeah, similar to last week. You know, I think we had a similar question last week. We're moving along. It's a process. We just continue to identify who needs what out of us, who's okay for this week as a group, what are the aspects of work that we're particularly focusing on to make sure that we've refreshed all of that ready for such a big game and such a big occasion. So in answer to your question, there's a really, really good positive vibe about the group, and long may that continue, because essentially when your mind is in a good place, the likelihood is you're going to perform and get into flow. So again, let's just see what happens on Sunday.
And of course, with 3 wins on the bounce, lots of excellent performances, especially last week. How difficult has it been in terms of narrowing it down to a specific starting 11 for this weekend?
Well, it is, of course, because obviously those players that get more time have more opportunity to show, and it's really difficult then to break up a winning side and to take players in and move players out just to rotate the side for rotating the side's sake, to give players game time. So some players will be looking at that and thinking, well, when's my moment going to come? Am I going to be ready for that moment? Which game is it going to be, etc., etc. So some players will be really impatient because they'll want to step in. Obviously, as the coach, as the manager, you've got to look at that really, really carefully. Is there a need to be changing formation? Is there a need to be changing players? Or do you stick with a tried and trusted formula or a tried and trusted pretty much starting 11? And I think to a large extent that's where we've got to from the turn of the year. This time last year, 12 months ago, we were changing every week. We were changing formation, we were changing style, we were changing players. Players were coming and going through the revolving doors. So we're much more stabilised now, and I think that is reflecting in not only the results. I think we're 7 wins in our last 9 now, but also in the performances. And as we said last week, wholesale changes break the relationships and the connectivity between players and units in the group, and it only really needs one flat tire and all of a sudden you're not functioning properly. So again, we will have to take a close look at what that means this week, next week and in coming weeks in terms of the broader squad, because obviously we have a responsibility to make sure that we're developing those players and they're getting opportunities as well. So that obviously is the sort of catch-22 for the coach, really. How do you manage that, and how do you get the players filtered in? And to be perfectly honest with you, there's no one satisfactory answer to that.
Registrations, injuries, holiday plans, work, situations, lots of factors come into the mix in terms of availability. But what's it looking like as we look ahead to the Swansea City game?
Illness really at this time of year is our major sort of hamstring. We've had one or two small injuries that are long term, which we can't help the players with to accelerate their return to the football pitch at the moment, the registration you've spoken about, but it's illness. Players are picking up things like tonsillitis now and COVID again. So as we head in towards winter now, that's where opportunities, are lost by one player and a game by the other player. And I think over the last 2 weeks we've seen that. Players that have dropped out for whatever reason have been replaced by somebody else that's come in and done a really, really good job. And it's forced the hands of the coaching staff in terms of tweaking the formation and tweaking who sits in each of those positions. And whilst that's good because it continues to challenge your way of thinking and the fact that you don't want to sort of, get stuck in a rut, is similarly you want that consistency. So we crave consistency, we crave everybody being available, but as you've rightly listed right at the beginning, it's a very, very, very rare weekend when everybody is available.